It's me, Moses again. It's great to be back with you. And I'm so excited to share my story today because today I'm going to tell you how I was called by God to be his special messenger and servant. You know, over the last few weeks as we've visited together, I've shared with you the story of Adam and Eve in the garden with the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and the fruit and their temptation and their children Cain and Abel and some of the sad things that happened there. Yet, we still heard about God's promises to love us and always be with us. After we heard about Adam and Eve, we heard the story of Noah and the flood and the animals and the rainbow and all those cool things. Well, after all that ended, a long, long period of time went on. And the Israelites, my people, they grew in number, many families and many children. But they were in the land that wasn't their own. The land was called Egypt. And while they were in Egypt, the ruler of the Egyptians, the Pharaoh, and the other people of Egypt got very, very upset. They were afraid that the Israelites were going to grow so big in number and have so many children and become so powerful that they were going to overtake the land of Egypt, they were going to overthrow the Pharaoh, and they were going to cause all sorts of problems for the Egyptians. So the Pharaoh and the Egyptians started to turn on the Israelites. They started to make them slaves and treat them unkindly. And then one day the Pharaoh came along and made a really sad rule. He said to all those who would help babies being born that if a mother and a father had a baby boy, that the baby boy was to be put to death. Ooh, that's sad, right? No one should ever kill anyone else, especially a little baby. And little girls, they would be allowed to live. Well, that's where the story comes in of how I got here and how God had a special call for me. See, I was born, and my mother, well, she wanted to make sure that I would be safe. So she hid me away for the first few months of my life when I was a little itsy bitsy baby boy, just like this. But then I got a little too big, and I started to cry and make noise. And my mother knew she couldn't hide me from the Egyptians too long. So one day she went down to the river. And when she went down to the river, she wrapped me in a nice cloth and put me in a basket, and she put me in the river. My mother knew that the Pharaoh's daughter always came down to the river to wash and to bathe. So my mother put me in the basket in the river, and that day the Pharaoh's daughter came down to bathe, and she saw the basket, and she heard the crying of the baby, of me. And so she instructed her soldiers, go get the basket. And when she went and got the basket, she found me, the baby. But she knew she needed some help to take care of me. And my sister, who's a little older than me, she was standing off to the side on the banks, watching the basket to make sure that everything would be okay. Well, when she heard the Pharaoh's daughter say she needed help to raise the baby, my sister ran very quickly to my mother and said, come with me, mother. Pharaoh is looking for a nurse to help raise her baby. So my mother got to come to work for the Pharaoh's daughter, and my own mother was able to take care of me and to raise me. So I grew up in the house of the Pharaoh. I was an Israelite, but I was in the Egyptian ruler's home with my mother taking care of me and the Pharaoh's daughter watching over me as though I was her own son. So I grew up and I learned all about Egypt and I learned all about the Israelites. And as I grew up to become a man, I was able to watch the Israelites and help to take care of them and protect them and make sure the Egyptians did not become too mean or angry or hurtful to them. But after a while, sadly, the hatred and the anger of the Egyptians became so bad that something had to happen. I didn't know what to do. And that's the day that God came along and called me in a miraculous and powerful way. As I was walking along the road by the water, by the Rocky Mountains like these behind me, I heard a voice call unto me, Moses, Moses, Moses. I looked around. I didn't see anybody. Nobody was there. But then I looked and I saw off to the side a bush. But this wasn't just any bush. The bush all of a sudden was on fire. The flames were burning. But the flames were not burning the leaves or the wood. It was like the flames were just firing up over the bush, but there was no smoke, and nothing was getting damaged, and nothing was getting hurt. So I sat by the bush, and I heard the voice again, Moses, Moses, this is God. And I started trembling in fear. God? And the voice from the bush, God said, Moses, you have been chosen by me to be my special servant, to help the Israelites be free from the cruelty of Egypt and the hatred of the Pharaoh. And I said, God, Lord, I'm not a leader. I can't do, what can I do? I can't help the Israelites. And God said, Moses, as the bush continued to burn and light up, Moses, listen to me, trust in me. I will be with you, Moses. I will give you special signs, Moses. I will help you, Moses. If you just trust in me, I will help you to lead the people from the Pharaoh and from their slavery. Moses, you will help to set the people free. So I just sat there by the bush. I was afraid and stunned, but I knew I had to listen to God. What could I do? He's God. He made all things. He watches over all things. So I had to trust in God. And I got up from the bush, and I went on my way, waiting to see how God would lead me. Next week, I'll tell you what God did. But all of us, every day, are called by God to trust in Him and let Him lead us, because He'll always help us to do what is right. So see you next week, and I'll tell you about Pharaoh and the Egyptians and how God helped me to set them free. See you next week. Bye-bye.